fall.
It's about time.
So I am done.
Yeah.
I am,
Well, my campaign team did the same thing, so I got another nasty gram from her.
yeah, you know, you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
You know.
It's most people. It's pretty understanding.
Yeah, and I actually been told by most people they actually appreciate it because they get a chance to read it, and particularly when it's not something where you're slamming anybody. It's just more about who you are and what you propose to do and what you've done. And so, but I'm done, and so now I decided I'm done. I'm just cruising for the last week, you know.
The unions have been helping me. They've been coming out and walking, and they're doing a big walk on Saturday, so I gotta walk. I can't walk if they're walking, so I'd like to be done.
Yeah.
I will be done after Saturday.
Yeah, but see, you got 4 times as much space to cover
It's
as I do.
insane. And I'm not the best walker. My Achilles does not like walking.
Yeah.
I get, an hour or 2 in, I'm happy that I got that far.
Yeah,
So,
well, the only nice thing is the weather has shifted to where it's cooler, fortunately, now, because last Wednesday I finished my last area, which was hitting my neighborhood the second time. Probably the last 40 houses I went to, I got my first blister.
Oh my God.
So and it's kind of like, well, that was timely.
Man. It's not bad, Joe.
No, better than I anticipated.
Yeah, people on Zoom. 7. So 7 people on Zoom.
Yeah, but nice. Yeah. Yep. It's already worthwhile.
Yeah.
So we can turn these off?
They're on.
You want it on or off?
You would leave it on, that way Zoom will.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, if you could launch a presentation. Okay. All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out. David Marioni, City Manager, City of Hollister, and I have the privilege of introducing our ad hoc committee and guests this evening. And so we have our Mayor Mia Casey here, Council Member Tim Burns, our Police Chief Carlos Reynoso, I have our Fire Chief Jonathan Goulding. We're going to have some additional guests coming up that I'll let the Mayor introduce. And with that, I'll pass it over to the Mayor to kind of give an overview of this evening and welcome.
I'll try to speak loud. I'm not as loud as Dave here. So I'll speak into the microphone. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We are going to be having a couple of things. First, we're going to do a little bit of an overview of the rally and what's kind of happened over the years, you know, how it's transpired and some of the different iterations of it. And then we're going to have a presentation, an exploratory location presentation from Dara Tobias, who is the manager of Bellotto Park, as well as one of her staff, Dave Kagabine. Did I say it right? Close, sorry. And then after that, we're going to open it up and have like a brainstorming session. And so we have cards. We're going to have to kind of do it orderly just because so we can get you all in, and whoever wants to talk will have an opportunity. So there's blue cards you can fill out and just put your name that you want to speak. And so when it gets to the brainstorming session, we'll be able to each we'll call you up and you can give 3 minutes. And so we'll get to that point. But that's basically it. We're going to keep it simple and have our discussion at the end and figure out next steps. So I thank you all for being here. And you guys want to take it away and do the overview?
All right, so just to give a brief overview, So the rally itself, the first rally was held in 1997 and ran concurrently through 2005. It was not held in '06, and then was held through '07 and '08, and then in 13 through 17. And then there was a handful of years that it was not held, as well as it has not been held since the 2017 year. I do have a disclaimer on there that the timeline's for general purposes and guidance only. Not all of us were working here through all the years. Some of us attended as residents in the beginning, but weren't at every single rally. And so I thank the chief and his team for going back and pulling the historic records on those. Additional details, so in the beginning there was a partnership with a nonprofit that helped put the rally on. And you know, one of the key factors of the rally has been the increase in tourism in the community. It does bring folks from not throughout, you know, just the state, but all throughout the country, and even some international folks that have made it out. We do see an increased sales volume for various sectors. You know, obviously our restaurants and our bars and entertainment businesses see a great uptick in business, as well as a lot of the other businesses in the downtown and throughout the city as well. It does lead to increased tourism, not only here, but in the surrounding cities as well, as many folks ride in for the day, but maybe staying in one of our surrounding cities as well. And so it is also one, we do have other 4th of July activities. We brought our fireworks show back, and we have some events in the morning with the kiddie parade and some activities over at the Vets building as well. We did in a few years, and maybe I'll pass it over to you, Chief, to talk about some of the, we did have some challenges with our partnerships with some of the promoters in the past. And so I'll pass that over to you, Chief, to talk about a few of those items.
Yes, thank you. I'll be really brief because I know we have a lot to get to, but what the city manager is talking about was specifically in 2006, a press release was released from the city. The nonprofit organization, the Hollister Independent Rally Committee, that was the year that they advised the city that they were not going to be able to pay for the rally after it occurred, and they left the city with over $250,000 in unpaid bills. In 2009, a similar thing occurred where the city was left with over $100,000 in costs. And then again in 2015, there was a promoter who neglected to pay $92,000, and that was part of the agreement. There's been a lot of criticism about the police and the amount of officers that are needed. The first years of the rally, we had a significant amount of officers out there, and a lot of them were CHP and the state of California Department of Justice. Those initial years, they weren't even charged to the city, they were free. The state provided those services for public safety, but the following years they started charging. They couldn't continue to come to Hollister in such numbers without getting reimbursement to the state. When we revised the rally in 2013, we didn't even have 50% of the officers in those initial first years. And most recently, when we tried to get public safety personnel for this last year and the year before, we weren't even able to get 10% of that lower number in 2017. And I think it's the situation I've explained before throughout the state with police departments being understaffed across the state and the inability for them to offer assistance for an event of this size. And a lot of people might say we don't need that many cops, but in 2014 we did have a shooting. 2 groups the previous day squared off right outside of Johnny's Bar downtown, and luckily we had enough police presence to separate the 2 groups. They were reluctant to separate, and when we started arresting people, they were able to separate. But the following day, those same 2 groups met at the Chevron gas station on San Felipe and engaged in a gun battle in the gas station. One group was from, I believe, Nevada or Arizona, and the other group was from Sacramento. So none of these groups wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for the rally. And in 2005 and 6, with the DOJ teams that were here, there were several times where the opposing motorcycle groups were squaring off, and those officers being present were able to quell to be there and be able to keep everything calm. So there is a need to have public safety and have extra personnel. I think there needs to be a balance, and I think in 2013 through 17, we had significant less officers in those first years, but that has been the problem up to this point, is not being able to be able to acquire not even 10% of the officers that you would need for an event of this size and for as many days. I think that's,
Yeah.
you want
And so, Chief, if I could just clarify, on our slide, it shows '06, and that's when the financial losses were all calculated, which led to the cancellation in '06. So in case it looks like, it happened in '06 and didn't, I just wanted to clarify any confusion on the slide there. Then in 2022, the City Council placed on the ballot 2 advisory measures. One was Measure T and one was Measure U. So Measure T, which passed by 63% on a yes vote, was that it would recommend that the city hold the Independence Day rally annually over the 4th of July weekend. There was an additional measure, Measure U, which failed by 57%. An advisory measure is like a survey of the community. So by no, what the question was on no was that it would not recommend that the city Independence Day rally be held annually over the weekend prior to or following the 4th of July. So think about it as question 1, we want to have the rally, that was yes, and then the subsequent question is, you want to have it on the 4th, the weekend of the 4th, or the weekend before and after. And so having it for the weekend of is essentially what had passed. And that was by 57%. So 63% for having it as an event, 57% of having it on the weekend of the 4th. In 2024, the City Council sent Councilmember Perez, who I believe I saw come in, there we are, Councilmember Perez, as well as Chief Reynoso and myself to Leesburg, which is in Central Florida, for their Bike Fest. So we had the good fortune of being there for pretty much the entire rally and getting to work with their team that was putting it on. So to see the intricacies of how they put that on, the security, their partnerships in the community, and how they put that on. We brought a report back to the council in August, and as a result, one of the actions was to form our AdHoc committee and have a discussion with the community as well. And so that is what we're here doing this evening. With that, that's kind of our overview of the rally, and we'd like to now pass it over to Dara to give an update from the fairgrounds.
And Dave, while she comes up,
Yes, please.
Mary Lerner, City Attorney, at one point in this workshop, I do want to speak to the risks, and so I don't know when a good time for me to do that is, but I'll wait for that indication.
Okay, maybe afterwards.
Okay.
Okay,
Forgive my back turned to you.
there we go.
Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you all for having us. We're very honored to be here. My name is Dara Tobias. I'm the manager at the San Benito County Fairgrounds. We hope you all were able to join us for the fair this year and cook with us. It was so hot. But one of the things that we have done throughout the history of the rally, off and on, is support the rally in different ways. At Bellotto Park, we're a state-owned agency. I don't know if everyone's aware of that. We are owned by the state of California. We're a district agricultural association. All of our employees are state employees, and our governance is a board of directors that's appointed by the governor of the state of California. So we are a little bit different. We're a little bit of an island in the middle of our county, which also our city is an island in the middle of our county. So we all work really well together, and appreciate the opportunity to talk with you from the city standpoint. We want to support the rally any way that we can if it is here. One of the things that we've talked about at length is the fact that we are an event center. We are set up We exist to host events. That's what we do. We have a reasonably secure perimeter. I understand anywhere we are that there's risk, but we have, as you can see on the photo provided there, the Tres Pinos Creek is on one side of us and State Route 25 is on the other side of us. We don't have neighborhoods and communities or anything else surrounding us. We have a couple of residential neighbors, a couple of ranch neighbors, so we're somewhat isolated. We do have very good control over who comes and goes from the property, and we feel that lends itself to putting measures in place for any type of event to keep things as secure as they need to be. We work very well during our fair with our private security teams. We had 3 private security teams during the fair, as well as our sheriff's department and our CHP all provide security for events in different ways, depending on the type of event. So we, at this point, do not have a plan. We do not have anything specific that we're offering to the public other than we have event space that has successfully housed events of all different types. Our recent fair probably had about 15,000 people over 3 days. So we are a large enough space to host larger numbers of people. And we're set up for that. We're set up to do that. We would like to reach out to the community. If we're going to have an event of any scope at the fairgrounds, it takes an army. It takes an army of volunteers. It takes a community of organizations. It's not something that we have the staff to do on our own. So I think the next step for us would be to say, we welcome the community. We welcome any and all of you that are interested in doing this to reach out to decide if we want to have an event like this at Bellotto Park, and if we want to plan it, and if we want to develop a plan, I should say, rather than plan it, because there are several next steps that we need after that. We are, again, owned by the state of California. We need permission from the Department of Food and Ag to contract for events. We need permission from the California Highway Patrol as the state police to hold events. So there's several steps after the fact if we do, in fact, present any sort of plan or proposal. But the very next step for us would be to have community support. And yes, we want to do this. What can we do? And we would consider starting some planning meetings, some brainstorming meetings, which it sounds like we're going to have an opportunity to do, to get started on the brainstorming and the ideas tonight. But again, I don't hesitate to reach out. I do have some business cards with me, and I'm happy to talk with anyone and see if we are ready to get to a point where we want to start developing a proposal, I would say, rather than a plan to go to the next steps. So thank you very much for the time, and I'll be available for questions later when it's appropriate.
Good evening. My name's Dave Kegabine, and I have been a resident here in San Benito County for about 15 years, but I was born and raised over in Watsonville. And I live here kind of between Union Road and the city's sewer treatment facility on the old San Juan Road there. So I've been involved in fairs, events, and festivals my entire life. And so over the course of the year, as I've kind of watched these conversations and tracked the whole concept of doing a motorcycle rally, I've talked to Derek because I'm involved in helping her with the fair and other events. And I'm like, I really think that this kind of event, this is what these fairgrounds were built for, were designed for, and that it should be centered there where there's crowd control and there's facilities and that sort of thing. So, huge challenge when you do these kind of events in a downtown open atmosphere. We've all seen the various security, safety challenges, and we understand law enforcement's concerns. So we're here just to make sure that people are aware that there are more than one way to do this. And I know that, a lot of people will be saying, well, we need it to be downtown to support the local businesses. But I went to Sturgis this year to look around, and actually, while I was at Sturgis was when the council decided they were going to have this ad hoc committee, and I reached out to Dara and said, we need to get involved in this conversation and see where it goes. At Sturgis, it's much different than something here in Hollister in that it's much larger. But the big thing there is that it's spread out in all kinds of different camps. And the whole thing is not downtown. People ride into town, hang out for a couple hours, go back to their various camps, and they're spread out far and wide. There's hundreds of thousands of people go there. So that's where this concept of doing, back in the 90s, there was a lot of activity at the fairgrounds. The motorcycle rally was downtown, but there was a bunch of activity out at the fairgrounds. And I think the shift here needs to be that the center of attention be at the fairgrounds. That still means that all the people that are camped out participating in the event are still going to have an interest in supporting all the local businesses and coming into town, and meals and groceries and supplies and hotels and people. There'll be the whole range of folks, from the tent campers to the RV campers to people who want to stay in a hotel. They're going to support the local economy. So we understand that this is a challenging concept. It's not something you just announce overnight. But I also think that every law enforcement agency around would way rather have a highly organized, sophisticated event than just having somebody invite 10,000 of their best friends to come to town. So we think we can help provide that highly organized event. And we're here to see what the level of community support is for that and whether or not it gains any traction. Thank you.
And Mary, before we get to the discussion portion, you wanted to chime in?
Sure. So I think it just goes with what Chief Reynoso was talking about when he was talking about the numbers of law enforcement support decreasing throughout the years. And so the risk would be that lack of adequate law enforcement will increase the danger to individuals that are attending the rally. It could also decrease the ability of law enforcement to make the scene safe for fire and medical personnel if they were responding to an emergency out there. And it could lead to an increased risk that law enforcement presence would not be sufficient to be able to handle a large disturbance. And I know Chief Reynoso gave an example of such an incident. So those are the risks, along with financial risks to whoever is holding the event. I only advise the city, so this would be advice I would give to the city.
We're going to do brainstorming shortly, and you'll be able to ask questions, and we can have some answers to things. So that's the idea. Sorry. Sorry about that. So yeah, I think if we're done with that section, we are going to move on to the kind of brainstorming and public comment. So because there's quite a few of you, I don't know how many want to speak, but if you guys want to grab some blue cards, put your name so you can come down. You can just talk about any ideas you have, things that you think have worked in the past, things that maybe haven't.
I don't have anything to offer, I just wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you can come down and ask the question. They'll call you up, but just that's the way we can keep it orderly, and we want to keep people. No, because we have folks on Zoom that are listening in, and if you come to the mic to do it, then it gets all recorded and everybody can hear it. So we're being official here.
This is the time we call upon the audience to share any comments or opinions you have on the Hollister Independence Route. This is a time we call upon the audience to share any comments or opinions you have on the Hollister Independence Rally. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are completed and given to staff before speaking. When staff calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the records, and provide your comments. If you're joining us via Zoom, please click on the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. If you're joining via Zoom using a cell phone, please press *9. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. And I currently have 4 speaker cards, and the first one that I have is Peter Largo.
Hi. So 1937 was the start of the Gypsy Tour out at Bellotto Park, and that's one of the first times we ever had this event out here. The rest of this has been predicated by a photograph that was taken in front of my bar that was actually a bus driver sitting on a motorcycle that he didn't own. My suggestion for this, in sympathy to the police chief's difficulty in finding resource officers on a federal holiday, would be, in fact, actually to move it off of the 4th of July and combine it with the Laguna Seca King of the Baggers event and turn it into a regional-wide week-long event where we didn't have so much of a powder keg downtown, but utilizing the original spot of the 1937 Gypsy Tour, we could spread everybody out. What I would like to do is invite the new adventure bike riders, which represent a larger part of the community, which are now a growing segment of the motorcycle population, out to Hollister Hills, out to the areas towards Coalinga, and have them go out and explore San Benito County, as well as come downtown and all that other stuff. And I think that it could be more manageable if we didn't have on the 4th of July, while we're trying to come up with resource officers while they're dealing with people blowing their fingers off and getting drunk on the 4th of July weekend anyway. But we actually had the following weekend where things have calmed down a little bit, and you don't have to worry about the federal holiday and the increased price of getting those guys in there because they're getting paid holiday pay and everything like that. Aside from that, I was a security specialist flown in from 2002 to 2017 until I ended up buying the bar. And I was the guy running that bar and its security. And we never really had any problems while I was in there running it, which is one of the reasons why the previous owners decided to sell me the bar. They knew I could manage it. I have since then been managing that bar to a very peaceful place where I now have a female as my bouncer out front. So we've done pretty good in managing that crowd. I've gotten to know in the last 7 years pretty much all of the motorcycle community, and a lot of them want to see the motorcycle rally come back. Some of them are particular on having it on the 4th of July, some of them are not. I would say that in large part they're supportive of it coming in, and having been a resident of Las Vegas and Maui, Hawaii, I can tell you personally, having lived in a place where tourist dollars make a big difference in a community, which can then be applied to whatever community program you want, we're really leaving a lot of cash off the table that we could be using to better our community. That's about it.
All right, thank you.
The next speaker that I have is Ashley James.
Hi.
We can answer questions if anyone does have questions, so that's.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley James. I am the general manager of a new establishment that's opening in town called the Brass Tap. And I have love for this community. I have 3 kids that are part of this community. My 11-year-old just bought his first 110 motorcycle. He rides at Hollister Hills. And I feel like it's really important to keep this piece of motorcycle history alive in Hollister. The Brass Tap supports motorcycle riders, and we are welcoming them. We have a huge parking lot in front of the Brass Tap that is not used during the weekend. And I agree with Mr. Lago that we should probably move the rally idea from the 4th of July weekend. If we could move it and do it in conjunction with some of the events that take place in Laguna Seca. I have connections with Laguna Seca in the event community, and I love the idea of utilizing Bellotto Park as a campground and a campground event space, and then tying in the community. We have the Brass Tap, we have the Wine Trail, we have Piscinas, we have the ranches, we have Visit San Benito County. We can tie all of this in together, possibly do some kind of a tour, kind of like a poker run where they stop numerous places, get that piece of history. The Wine Trail, Piscinas, go to different restaurants, and tie it all in together, bring the money and the industry and see all the sites. Don't forget Hollister, and somehow tie it all in together. There's so much to tap into, so much money to be spent in this community, and get everyone to remember us and see us, a concert at Guerra, tie it all in together. And I feel like there's so many things to see, so many places to see, so many different generations of motorcycle riders. Hollister Hills, the Harleys, the Indian motorcycles, the motorcycle club, so many enthusiasts of all ages and generations, the grandparents, the kids, and then we could all make money and we could all enjoy it together. That to let it just go by the wayside, obviously people are enthused by it, they voted on it, and we could make it all work, and we could also work with the police officers and CHP and somehow figure out a way to make everybody happy and safe and do it together. I know there's so many people that if we tied it all in together, brainstorming is the right idea, it's a step in the right direction. And the Brass Tap, we are willing to work with the community and the police and do it all the right way. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next speaker card I have is Carl Dianlardo.
I wanted to thank Chief Reynosa, Councilman Burns, and Mayor Casey for having had the courage to not push this through after 2022 when everybody wanted it. I'm glad you were thinking about us. I wanted to just ask a question. I guess I can't ask questions, but I'll just tell you what I'm thinking about.
You can ask questions.
Oh, I thought I heard you couldn't.
No, you
couldn't ask.
can ask
Oh,
questions.
we can.
It's
Okay, great.
okay.
I would like to know if the citizens of Hollister can pick up an additional liability bond over what we already have, so that bond would only be for the Hollister bike rally.
Is that a city attorney question?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. You could check with the risk manager as well regarding that question, and then, of course, have indemnification agreements, defense agreements as well. That doesn't necessarily mean that the city wouldn't ever be exposed to the liability,
Yeah.
but there would be forms of coverage for that liability.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you all.
Thank you, good question.
Mayor Casey.
The next speaker I have is,
Hold on just a moment.
Just, it's been brought up twice in regards to having the event on a different day of the 4th of July. When I did the inquiries, and this was answered in one of the council meetings, I think one of the council members brought this up. The reason for not having ability to lend us officers or have us contract officers is because the vast majority of the police departments are understaffed. I don't think it would make a difference whether it was on the 4th of July or the next weekend. They are still understaffed. And my understanding in my inquiries were, whether it's 4th of July or not, that they weren't able to help us at this time because of the state of many police departments being understaffed. And I think that our city attorney also mentioned, she also asked some police departments as well, and I don't want to speak for her, but it's the same response right now across the state because of the state of the law enforcement at this time. So I don't know that it will make a huge difference whether we change it to the following or different weekend.
Thank you, Chief.
the next speaker I have is Mike Marcatello.
I just have a few questions because I'm trying to get a handle on this to Mr. Reynoso. What is the total manpower of Hollister Police Department and San Benito Sheriff's Office? How many officers do you feel you have to have in the field to do this event? Because, you know, I've attended it and I've never seen a problem, but I'm sure it exists. How many years did nothing serious happen at this event? You know, we heard about events that happened 10 years ago, and, you know, are we talking about 2 or 3 events over the course of this thing, or is it something that happens every year? And I'm just curious on how much manpower Hollister can put out in the field and how much it takes. Because we don't really talk numbers, so I'm just curious.
Right. Yeah, thank you for the question. And you're right, we really don't talk numbers because it wouldn't be prudent for me to tell everyone how many officers we have. It's an officer safety issue. We don't want those elements that might come that are prone to commit crime, the 1%ers, knowing how many officers you have. But thank you for pointing out that a lot of things did not happen, and we take credit for that because those officers, I explained to you, there was many times that our officers intervened in situations that could have gotten out of hand. Over the years, we've taken guns off of people, we've taken illegal weapons off the people. We had to pass special ordinances because of all the weapons that were being brought into the event. So all of that policing was happening behind the scenes, and we didn't want to. We would arrest people, take them out of the event, and bring them to our center at the Briggs Building, and we would try not to make it very obvious. So over the years that happened, and you said that 2014 was 10 years ago. After 2017, there hasn't been a rally. So there were many events that weren't publicized because it was just regular police work doing that. We did go to Leesburg. It is very, very similar to this event here, and they had a significant amount of officers, I think more officers than we've had here before, and it was relatively the same size rally downtown. So I think that the officers that we do have, like I mentioned, it's less than 50% in the early 2000 of those numbers. There's people who say there's 50,000 people here. You can imagine how many officers you would need for 50,000. I don't think it's ever gotten to that high amount. But there are ratios and numbers and suggestions of how many officers we should have for an event of this size, and we try to follow those. But again, we don't advertise how many officers we have for those reasons, for safety reasons.
The next speaker card that I have is Miguel Zendez.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, sorry. It's actually my first time doing this, but I do want to say, I grew up in this community. All you guys look very familiar to me. The first rally was 97, so I was probably like 13. And I can remember going up and down, popping a wheelie. My BMX was a mongoose. So I know, it's a long tradition of ours here. I really miss it. I just got back from Hawaii, and in Hawaii I seen somebody, and I told them I'm from Hollister, and they told me, oh, the place where they have a motorcycle rally? I think that's awesome for us. And apart from that, there are benefits, and I know that there's costs and everything, but we keep looking at this as a one-day event or a one-weekend event. At the same time, there are residuals where people can actually look at our community and actually like our community and come back. Apart from that, spend some time. We have 2 huge hotels that were made, and they're not really occupied, and I feel that they can really be occupied by that. And our community does need that. We all see the potholes and all that kind of stuff that we avoid. 25 is crazy, all that kind of stuff. And I know, we kind of just pass that by, but we got to take advantage of all these opportunities that we have. I don't represent any organization at all, but I know you mentioned that it might not be an issue if it's on the following weekend, but I suggest we at least try instead of just giving up on it. That's the way I feel about it, I'm not trying to single anything out. I'm just saying, we need to at least try it because the community wants it, the business owners want it. And me and myself, eventually I do want to own a business here in Hollister myself, so I do want to benefit from it as well in the future. I don't want to be self-serving, but, you have to take care of our community, and I feel that, we really need to stress about it. The other thing I remember from 1997 was that it was spread out, and I think I remember, if I'm correct, that, we had places over there by the county jail, we had Bolado Park, we had downtown. And I think decentralizing it and getting people away would be awesome. And I think Peter actually talked about that as well. We're mixing it in with Bagger Nation or Bagger King of the Bangers, baggers, not bangers. Sorry. Please, we don't. Yeah, no, not bangers. Different group. But I think that would help. You know, we don't want that kind of rally, I guess, right? But I mean, that's what the whole thing's about. You know, I know that we mentioned some certain type, and it got brought up, which was like the one percenters. And again, I don't speak for anybody, but I can tell you that everybody just wants to have fun, and that's not something that they want to ruin. And it was just one situation that happened. So thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
And I don't have any more speaker cards.
Does anyone else want to talk? Any other ideas? I mean, this is supposed to be brainstorming, so if you have thoughts, come on up to the podium in the back. You want to come up and introduce yourself? We won't make you fill out a card. No, you come on down. Just tell us.
Yeah, we weren't sure how many cards or how many speakers we'd receive, so.
Get a bunch, so we wanted to keep it ordered, but we're doing it nice.
Thank you for the opportunity. Historically, obviously, excuse me, Robert DeLuna. Historically, Hollister has been the focus or the main focus of the riders coming into town. So you spoke about moving it out and that kind of stuff. And again, as you mentioned, it was years ago, I guess over in the airport area. I don't know how well that worked, but I think the main focus, we should try to keep it, if it in fact goes through, try to keep it in town, have some concerts and other events like Bolado or other areas like that. But there are some areas here, like for instance Kmart, the parking lot is not being utilized. We could probably use it for some vendors and that kind of stuff. But I think for the most part, the main focus for the riders should be the town. And again, all the businesses in town would benefit from it because they're going to be coming in. They will be coming in. Sturgis, again, I've never been there personally myself, but I know how it's spread out, through a lot of riders. You talk to a lot of different riders, and they go from different areas, different venues and things like that. So I think something like that might work here. I mean, it's been quite a while since we've had it. So I, for one, would like to hopefully try to revive it again and give it a shot. And I understand there's risks. I think we all know that. We can, as you say, brainstorm and try to hopefully come to a good, reasonable conclusion to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and before Peter comes up, we'll have you come up next. One of the differences with an ad hoc versus, this is an ad hoc meeting, where you have 2 council members versus our full council meeting where we have all 5, is they do have the ability to answer questions and go back and forth. So the idea is to be a little less formal, although we're up here wearing suits. We're more than willing to listen to your comments and to answer back. And if we don't have the answer, we can certainly follow up. So with that, Peter, and then we'll be happy to have anybody else come up.
So one of the things that I heard mentioned was how do we handle 50,000 people? Historically, we had 1947 baby boomers coming out here, and we had a whole group of people in 1997 that were all in their 30s and 40s on brand new Harley Davidsons. That was the demographic. I really don't think you're going to see 50, 60,000 people on your first, second year. I really think if you spread it out, and if you look at downtown, how it's gone into a one-way and we have parklets and everything, we can't physically fit that many people downtown. So you're a lot less likely to have the same powder keg scenario that I was dealing with in 2002, 3, 5, 8, 12, 15, and 17 when I was flown out here to do this rally. So if we spread out this rally, as they do in Sturgis, and we connect it to King of the Baggers, which we can do. I have connections. Ashley has, everybody here in the room has connections with King of the Baggers. It's easy to allow smaller groups of people into town so they can come in and visit, go to Bolado, go to our event center, go to our concert area and everything like that, and also through a course of a week so that everybody isn't piling in here inside of 3 days, I think makes it a lot more manageable. And we have 2 choices as a community. We can tuck our heads and we can stay in our bedrooms where it's safe, or we can do what we should do as human beings and live and accept that there is a little bit of risk with living. I don't think it's an unreasonable risk. I think that the demographic of bikers has changed. I'm going to be inviting in a lot of adventure bike riders as well, which is not that crowd that anybody's really afraid of, because we have a lot of other places that we can invite them to. I think you're going to see a mixed crowd of people that are coming in, because Hollister does have this distinction of being the birthplace of the American biker. We have a lot of great roads around here. We have a lot of great places to go. And if we spread this between our county and Monterey County and give people places to go and things to do, then there's less reason for this to turn into the same powder keg that it did in incident years that we had in the past.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody else? No, come on down.
Hi, I'm John Casey. One of the things I thought might come up tonight and that I'd seen on social media is talking about other pools of people to draw from, veterans or reservists that we could swear in either through the local police department or the sheriff's department for the day. I didn't hear that brought up, and that's just one of the things I wanted to ask, is that something we could consider to see whether or not that pool of people, that might be interested in working for the weekend.
And thank you for the question, yes. And I think that's what happens in Sturgis. There's a lot of officers that come from the surrounding states, and they help out in Sturgis, and they're basically sworn in to help that jurisdiction. Unfortunately, in California, you can't do that. And anyone who you hire, whether it's temporarily or not, you have to do a full background psychological evaluation on each person, and it doesn't make sense to do it for just the weekend. And that person cannot be working for someone else. So you basically be hiring people who are not officers just for the weekend and doing full backgrounds and psychological evaluations on all of them. And that's why the model in California is that you contract with an agency. So if we contracted with Gilroy Police Department, they are Gilroy officers, and they're working under their post-certified peace officer standards are across the board throughout the whole state. We know that they're certified and that they will be enforcing the same penal code, the same rules, same regulations. And there's a standards and training element of it. And we're basically bound to that. So even when we've reached out to correctional officers from the prisons, there's only specific correctional officers that we can contract with. The correctional officers that work in the prison only, they don't have police powers outside of the prison. But there are correctional officers that are actually police officers. Those are the ones that work outside of the prison, that do investigations. When somebody sends a file in a cake to the prison, they're the ones that go out and investigate. Any kind of thing like that, there are an element of correctional officers, so we had them here before. So there's very specific people who are considered peace officers in the state of California, and we have to, by law, contract with their agency. We've had probation officers here before. We contracted with their probation department, so we just have to follow the rules, and that's what we're bound to. And other states are different. And Sturgis is in Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota. All those are slightly different from here.
You had a question? You want to ask a question?
Officer Wendell, I have a question, and this just came to mind, so correct me if this is a dumb question. But how do they manage like outside lands or something like that, or music festivals like in Golden Gate Park, where they have like 100,000 people? And those are public events like Golden Gate Park, a huge music festival where people just show up. They don't go through metal detectors or anything like that. They have like a 3-day music festival. How do they handle that security?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Golden Gate Park or their events there.
Well, they will have, like outside lands. It's in San Francisco, and it's like a 3-day music festival, and people just show up. They don't go through security or metal detectors or anything.
They do.
Or, But how do they handle, or like, let's say it's like a big art and wine festival.
Well, I don't know which festivals you're talking about, but a lot of festivals that are large that way, you usually do.
Like or Mountain View Art and Wine Festival, where the whole town turns out and it's public, like downtown blocks and blocks and blocks, and people just show up there. I mean, I'm just curious.
I think it's also
tens of thousands
the
of people.
crowd, if it's, the wine festival in Morgan Hill versus.
Well, not Morgan Hill. I'm talking about like like if they do it, like Mountain View does one, and they have tens, thousands of people, and they're out. But like outside lands or Golden Gate Park, they have music festivals, and like the Pumpkin Festival, right, or Half Moon Bay Festival, and they're large gatherings of people. Do they have to hire additional police forces for those things? I'm literally just asking.
Well, let me answer you. I think
Okay.
that you're talking about hugely different events from the one that we have here. Pumpkin Festival seems to me to be family oriented, with full of kids, and I don't think the security needs are as much as you would for a motorcycle event. I know that the corn maze that we have over here is policed by the sheriff's department when they have events there. So each event will dictate what level of security they would need, and I can't speak to those agencies. I don't know how many police officers they have. I don't know what security measures they take for these events that you're talking about.
So it's just dictated because it's bikers, because there's of the people that are drawn to that type of event. That's how the numbers are decided by.
I think that when you look at the history of events and rallies across the United States and the level of violence that has happened, you would have to take into consideration the possibility of violence, the possibility of criminal element versus a pumpkin festival.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
So,
that was just my question. Because something like EDC in Las Vegas, which is like the right, then you would have to account for how many officers would be there. There's a formula, I guess.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, I think each event has to do. They have to do an operational plan, and as most people do, and they would have in there how many they would need, where they would be positioned, and where. It's not just the criminal element; it's also emergencies, guarding the exits, making sure the exits are appropriate, making sure it's been mentioned before, making sure that the fire department and the medics have access to get into anyone who may need help.
Mhm.
There's a lot of concerns, not just the criminal element; it's just public safety in general that has to be planned for events like that.
Just curious. Thank you.
I saw a question over here. You want to come up?
Sorry, you guys have to listen to me again. I just wanted to say, I mean, there's a couple things that have changed as well from 2014 with the advance of technology, which we have a lot of cameras downtown and drones and all that stuff. So I was wondering if there's any way that you can use security guards as fillers maybe as well. I'm just trying to solve some issues. I'm just trying to get this rally going, Just throwing out ideas, I know it's California. I think you just talked about how you actually need sworn officers, but there has to be some way we can delegate that responsibility, some responsibility where we're not maybe having the sworn officers everywhere. And also as well, I think we do need to foster a positive culture throughout the rally, and that is coming from the citizens as well, from the police force as well. I've never had an issue, I was never doing anything illegal anyway, so that's probably why. But I just want to say thank you for listening. I don't know how, just throwing out some ideas.
Yeah, I want to ask a question about that. Maybe Chief can answer, but maybe Dara might be able to answer, because you were talking about the fair and you had, 14,000 people come through, but you use a combination of CHP, the sheriffs, and private security. How is that possible? Is it because you're are you a nonprofit entity that manages the fairgrounds, or are you part of the state? I mean, is there a difference there because of that?
I don't know that there's a difference per se. We are a state agency. Our property is owned by the state of California. We, however, are very minimally funded by the state of California. We have about a $960,000 budget, and we get $50,000 a year from the state of California. The remainder of that is earned by us and by our activities on our grounds throughout the year. So what we are led by is mitigating risk, and we are partners with a insurance company called California Fair Services Authority, which is a JPA that insures all the fairgrounds in the state of California, because no one else would insure us. Because we do have the irony of being forced to put on events in an environment, in a world where things are unsafe and things happen not just at motorcycle rallies, but at churches and schools and everywhere else that horrible things have happened to people. So I started this job in 2016, and I don't know if any of you had been to the fair prior to 2019, where we all just parked wherever we wanted to and we walked wherever we wanted to and had full access to our vehicles. We've since implemented secure perimeters so that we have a parking lot and we have a walk-through gate where we purchase a ticket, your bags are checked, you walk through a metal detector, and we have a sense of knowledge of what people are bringing onto our property. Just this year, for the first time, we've also implemented a walk-through gate in our livestock department. The trainings that we have extensive trainings with safety and security. We have, there's been situations in the fairgrounds where the livestock department became a weak spot because we trust our livestock families. They're just raising animals. And there was an incident where someone who was showing a livestock was also affiliated with some really unsavory people, and that became an avenue for people to come into the grounds and wreak havoc. So there's a lot of issues on fairgrounds. There's a lot of scary things that are happening all over the state. The Contra Costa County Fairgrounds in Antioch just last year implemented a policy where no one under 21, I believe, no one under 18 was allowed to come in by themselves because they had a gang of about 40 kids that were starting a fight club essentially and beating people up and videotaping it. And so there's a ton of things that we know about and we learn about and we deal with, and essentially we're at the will of the people. We're at the will of what law enforcement will allow us to do. Primarily CHP is our law enforcement, whatever risk they're willing to allow us. We fill out forms and they say, okay, this event is approved on your grounds. So
that helps. But my one question is, I know you said something about you supplement with security, private security. How is that possible? Like,
we have to pay for it.
But I mean, the process. I mean, we just heard from the chief that there has to be, for the city, we have to have, X, Y, and Z. We can't use. It's harder to use like a private security or something else. There's rules about that. So you're able to do it. How are you able to do it?
So we're able to do it for smaller events. The formula that we use is anything, and again, this is all discussed and approved by CHP, who's our law enforcement authority. The smaller events that we do every weekend, we do birthday parties, we do quinceañeras, we do things like that. We, through our insurance company, have developed a formula where we require one security guard per 75 guests. Some security companies' licensing is different. I'm learning that some of them require one security guard per 50 guests. The larger events, that formula doesn't always work. We, again, evaluate the type of event, evaluate the scope of the event, and we work primarily with private security. Anything over 500 people, we most likely will have a law enforcement officer on board. Whether it be a CHP officer that's sitting out by the road to mitigate traffic, just to be on standby. It flexes. It's not something that is really a formula per se, other than we have posts around our property for the events that we're familiar with, and we make sure that all of those posts are filled by private security. And then our law enforcement officers have oversight over the private security, and they're communicating with them constantly. One of the things, the ways that it was explained to me, is that a private security company enforces the rules where a law enforcement officer enforces the laws. And the rules that we have on our property are not necessarily laws. We of course follow all the laws, but we also have rules in place that we create for each event. So I don't know if that really clearly
No, it
answers
helps.
your
It's just good
question,
to
but
explore this, and then I don't know if you have anything to add, Chief,
Yes.
about that.
Yes, I do. Thank you. And it's a very good question. And thank you for explaining quite a bit about the differences between security guards and law enforcement. And we have used security guards in the rallies that we've had here. We have specific specific duties that the security guards deal with, which the beer gardens, they were there. They were given specific instructions. You have to check ID and not let anyone in here who's not 21 into the beer gardens. That's where you use the security guards, because the security guard's job is to observe and report. That's what their job is, to observe and report. And it is excellent, Dara. They enforce rules, not laws. When something goes wrong, the security guard will call the police officer, and that's why you have to have those police officers there. And the problem you have, unfortunately, with some security, and I don't know if you had any trouble finding security. At times, there's companies that pop up and then disappear and stuff like that. But many times, and in the case of the city, the event is happening on city property. It's happening on public streets. And sometimes the use of security guard, I mentioned the post standards across the state. They're the same standards for police officers. There's no standards that are across the same from one security company to another. So what one security company or security officers thinks they can do may be different from another company. So you might have a security guard who just observes and reports and doesn't do anything, doesn't intervene because that's their job. And you might have security officers that overstep their bounds and interact with people and make things worse than they would have been. And there goes the liability back to the city. So if a security guard gets heavy-handed and acts and there's contact with people and it's unlawful, even though security guards are citizens, they can make citizens arrests as well. They still have the same power as anyone else. They could incur liability back towards the event or the city. So it's really important to get reputable, well-trained security guards, but only specific tasks. Like you're gonna guard this door, make sure nobody comes in. You're gonna check IDs for everybody coming into the beer garden. Those are specific tasks that you can use them for. And that's what we've done. Most all the rallies we've had security guards for that. We even had security guards guarding our offices so that we wouldn't have an officer standing there just guarding a door, making sure that nobody came in. We had security guards for that, so that our officers could be roving around the rally when we were having the rallies here.
Thank you for that. So, any other?
One more question.
Okay.
You guys mentioned that you got burned by the promoters. How did that happen? And why can't you require them to purchase insurance against non-payment to the city? Isn't there anything like that can be done? I mean, how did that happen?
I wasn't around, Chief. Do you know more of the details on that?
Well, I think that the first event with HIRC, Hollister Independence Rally Committee, they're the group that had the most run of rallies from '97, I think, to 2005. They just said, and the press release says that, they just said they didn't have the money to pay it.
Because they lost it at the rally? The rally didn't make them the money they thought they would get?
Well, here's the situation. People don't understand that the rally is an open event. There's very limited ways that the promoter or the nonprofit can make money. There's no entrance fee. There's no one paying anything, so people just write in, and maybe perhaps the ability to make money to offset the costs wasn't there.
Where did they expect to make the money? From the vendors, or?
They make it from the vendors. They make it from, the vendors do pay the promoter a fee to be able to sell here. There's different ways that they can make their money, but obviously it didn't work for them.
Well, maybe there's a way we could, you
Yeah.
can force them to insure against non-payment somehow.
Well,
I don't know if that's a
there were contracts. The gentleman who didn't pay 92,000 called it a dispute, but there was a clear contract, and he didn't pay it. There were contracts in
go
place.
after him?
Yes, they did.
And
My understanding is that he eventually paid some of the money back, but that's many years ago, and I wasn't involved in that. But I just want to point out that the most successful run of the rally was with a nonprofit running it, HERC. So there are those restrictions that if they had it at Bellato Park, you could charge an entrance fee, and that money goes to offset all your costs. The way it's been happening in the downtown, people ride in, they can ride out, they buy a T-shirt, buy something to eat, and they leave. They go to Johnny's. They have to go to Johnny's. But there's no other way for a promoter or a nonprofit to say, we're going to sell these many tickets and make this much money so that we can pay for the cost of everything. Now, I think Councilmember Burns has brought up the idea of fencing the downtown. The problem with that is you would have the cost of 2 fences, because if you put 1 fence, it's really easy just to break through the fence. You have to have security around the whole fence, and then your costs go up again. And not to mention, there's people who live in the downtown area. There's businesses, there's employees. It becomes a logistical nightmare to fence the area and just to charge. And not to mention that our bikers want to ride through town. I mean, that's the whole point of it. They want to ride their bike through there. And if you fence it off, there was one year when we had it with no bikes downtown. I don't think anybody liked it that way. That's what they want to do, ride downtown. So that's part of the problem, that there's no way for them to secure fund. One time we were charging, not we, the nonprofit was charging parking, and people would pay parking and get a little sticker. And within an hour, people had found the sticker and were placing it on all the motorcycles. So there's plenty of ways that they've tried it in every possible way, but this is where we're at right now. But I think that the solution would be a nonprofit to step up and take control of this.
We have one hand raised on Zoom.
Oh, why don't we go to Zoom first, then we can come back.
You have been muted. Noel?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. First, my name is Noel Cody. I'm the captain and commander of the CHP Hollister Gilroy area. I want to thank Chief Reynoso and Dara from Bellato Park of making me aware of this ad hoc meeting tonight. So thank you for giving me a moment to speak. I won't rehash or reiterate all of the rightly placed public safety concerns generally related to general law enforcement. What I haven't heard discussed at all is traffic safety. And so I'm going to hit on that very briefly here. Since I took command of the Hollister Gilroy area in January 31st of this year, I started to look back at the numbers for the area, crash data related to vehicular homicides and fatal traffic collisions, to try and determine, any trends or causation, things that my staff needed to be focused on. During all of those data crunching, what I learned in a short period of time of being here is that 1 in 4 of the vehicular homicides and or fatal traffic collisions that's occurring in my area, which encompasses all of San Benito County, and basically from the 101 split South San Jose down to the Santa Clara line, is that 25% of the deaths that are occurring on the highways in my area are motorcycle deaths. That's 1 in 4. There are not 1 in 4 motorcycles on the roadway. When we're all out driving around, every 4th vehicle we see is not a motorcycle. So they are grossly overrepresented in the folks being killed on our highways. Another interesting nugget out of that statistic is that only one of those in the year of 2023 actually occurred on the freeway. All of the other deaths, motorcycle deaths, occurred on our unincorporated highways and state routes in county areas. So I started looking at population growth. I started looking at highway infrastructure. I do sit on the San Benito County Technical Advisory Committee, which focuses on traffic safety and traffic enhancement in San Benito County. And I think you all intuitively know that the population of Hollister is not the same that it was in 2017. It has gone up. The highway infrastructure has not kept up with that growth. I know everybody knows that. We all sit in enough traffic in gridlocked roads, whether we are talking about the 25, the 152, the 156. It has not kept up. And though we're working hard to try and address that issue and get that infrastructure up to date, it is not there today. So the thought of inviting 10,000 motorcycles into an area where motorcycle deaths are already grossly overrepresented in the highway deaths that are occurring in San Benito and South Santa Clara County, on infrastructure that's not designed to support it, with an increased population from the last time an event was held, and taking into consideration that though population has been growing and infrastructure hasn't kept up with it, law enforcement staffing has shrunk for myriad of reasons. So when you look at all of that from a purely highway traffic safety of the motorcyclists, safety of the rally goers, safety of all other motorists on the highway and in the community, inviting this is inviting problems and death. I'll be blunt. I live off of a very simple slogan that served me well over 26 and a half years in law enforcement. Predictable is preventable. It is predictable that there will be crashes, and these crashes will result in injury and or death in volume. Regrettably, I was unaware of this meeting fast enough to get statistics. I have reached out to a unit that we have in the Highway Patrol that collects and compiles crash-related data statewide from all municipalities. And I'm going to try and get a snapshot of the last 3 years in comparison to the last 3 years the rally was held just over the 4th of July weekend, and see if the data, what it shows. But intuitively, none of us need to go beyond the fact that we know the infrastructure hasn't kept up. We know that it's not there to support the current population of Hollister and San Benito County. We know that inviting all of these additional motorists into the community will increase that already gross problem, and therefore would be inviting predictable problems that are preventable. Thank you.
Well, not knowing what the rest of the state is, how do we make sense of that?
There's a couple of things I'd like to address. There are no airbags in a motorcycle. So I think every motorcycle rider in this room agrees that we are 80% more likely to die in a crash, which is what it says right here, than you are if you were in a car with airbags. So those statistics that he's saying are dead on accurate. And we do need to fix the roads around here. They're in the process of being fixed. That's inarguable, 100%. To address the private security versus the other security, he's 100% correct. You do have to have qualified law enforcement officers in order to do this. You need enough of them to do this. I am a proponent of private security because I was flown out here as a security specialist. I used to work for Kellogg, Brown and Root. So before I worked for KBR, I used to get flown out here, and in between that, I did that. I ran 63,000 people through Johnny's Bar and Grill inside of 3 days. On one of the rallies, I had one of those guys with one of those little clickers, and I said, when that goes over to 999, make a hash mark on the wall. We put 63,000 people through that bar without a single incident because we were proactive, we were unarmed, we didn't have bulletproof vests, we didn't have guns, we just made eye contact with everybody and went, I see you looking at that guy across the bar, and I'll buy you a drink if you don't do what I think you're thinking about doing in the bar. That usually, sometimes, was enough, and for the most part, we avoided incidents. There's always going to be risks. I get on my bike every day. I am twice as likely if I get into an accident on my motorcycle to die than if I'm in my truck. I have a 2007 Ford F-350. If I get into an accident with that thing, I win. If I get into an accident on my Road Glide, I lose. So these are obvious statistics. Are you inviting people to be injured into the... Wow, that's a hard case. That's a hard case. You have two choices. You can live in absolute security with no freedom, or you can live in dangerous freedom. It is up to us, the people, I think, to decide what we are willing to risk and how much we want to live. I hope that the City Council will agree that we have to have a life, and we cannot live in cages, and we cannot live sequestered to not being able to gather peaceably when we want to. I hope that there's ways around this. I hope there's safe ways to do it, and I hope we can work in conjunction with the police chief's wishes of having enough security to do this, with the highway patrolman's wishes of being able to do it. I will tell you that coming in on 152 when there's lots of traffic, I don't think it's really possible for me to kill myself on my motorcycle unless I'm sandwiched between two cars, because I'm only going 15 miles an hour because the traffic is going nowhere. Aside from that, what's that? I did get a ticket for cutting on the side one time. The highway patrol was not happy with me there. And I only did that because I had a car behind me that was texting. He almost rear-ended me 3 times. Aside from any of that, we do have to decide, do you want perfectly safe to be locked up? Do you want dangerous freedom? And there's a certain amount of this that I think can be balanced out safely, reasonably, within a cost that makes sense. I think there's a way to do it. I think we just need to work on it. We need to find a way towards, this town has some history. There's a lot of benefit that can come to it. I propose a 5% tax on anything sold during the rally to go to a police training center. Maybe we have a police academy brought here so that we can solve that problem of not having enough police officers. If we have the ability to do that, if we have millions of dollars coming in here, why can't we sequester a couple $100,000 every year to go over to building that facility, funding those police officers, and getting more resource officers here? I was raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. We grew beyond our britches way too fast. We had huge problems with crime. Thankfully, we had Sheriff John Moran there. He laid down the law, and we got enough resource officers in order to make that place peaceable again. Las Vegas is a great town right now, which survives on tourism that comes in there, which has people from all over the world come in there, including lots of bikers. But I can tell you, Johnny's Bar and Grill right now is suffering. I can't go through too many more winters with no rally. That berefts the bar of $100,000 every year, which doesn't give me the ability to cover where it's slow. And with those parklets in front, no one's seeing my business. No one sees the mural on the side of the building, and we're suffering. You may lose a piece of your town's history. That bar is a piece of the town's history, and it's why I'm here. Aside from that, you've got this motorcycle mecca that no other place has. You're the birthplace of the American biker. And that all comes down to something that started at Bellotto Park. It continued at Bellotto Park. We can roll it through that weekend, and we can manage this so that it's not such a powder keg. We can stretch it out. We can give people places to go, places to ride, just like they do in Sturgis. Sturgis is a town of about 6,500 people that for 2 weeks has 500,000 bikers from all over the nation come to that little town. Where's their problems? They have deaths for sure. There's about 8 deaths per year because people come cross country, they wreck, they ride too fast. That's natural selection. I think we all here agree that this is part of being a biker.
I already died.
Yep. Yeah, they told me to walk it off. So we all accept that there's a reasonable risk in this because I live more on a motorcycle than most of you non-riders live in your entire lives. In the 5 minutes that I ride that thing, and when I've gone to Sturgis every year for 10 years. Last year, I rode from here to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, slapped our Johnny's Bar and Grill sticker 10,000 miles away from here, did 10,000 miles in 31 days. I love being on motorcycles. There's a lot of other people that do that are law-abiding citizens, and you've got a whole new contingent of adventure bike riders. You're looking for my 3 minutes to be up, aren't you? He is.
Yeah, I want to be respectful of our time. It's getting on 8 o'clock. So.
Yeah, we'll get going. I just want to say there's the demographic has changed. There's a lot of Indian riders who are respectable people. There's a lot of adventure bike riders that are respectable people. It's not all that hardcore stuff that you guys are so afraid of. That element does exist. It can't be ignored. But there's a lot of good that can come from this. There's a lot of good money that can come into the town. Just look at Maui, Hawaii, and look at Las Vegas. They take a lot of tourism dollars and they put it in good places, and we could do the same thing.
Thank you. Just very quickly, yes. We'll take one last comment, and that's it.
I have one more thing to say. As a member of the community, not a motorcycle rider, I've ridden on the back, as a mom, and I represent another part of the community. My little boy has broken his collarbone twice. One time riding his motorcycle. Another time, just walking down the street, he fell and hit the curb and he broke his collarbone. Motorcycles can be dangerous. Motorcycle riders, I'm not scared of bad guys. I'm a little redheaded girl that grew up in Salinas. And I grew up next to gangsters, not scared of them. Motorcycle riders, not scared of them. They can represent criminal activity, some of them, but a lot of them are my neighbors, their grandpas, their dads, and a generation of Hollisterians? What are Hollisterians? What are we
Something like
called?
that, yeah.
What do we call them? Hollisterians, Baylors, hey Baylors, and this community. And I think that we can work this out. If we put our brains to it, we can work it out. And we can work in hands with the police. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just, Mayor, I just wanted to point something out. Well, you understand about risks. I mean, I think being a police officer, you're taking risks every day. And we understand about being reasonable. It's not that we want zero liability, zero risk, because there's no way to provide that. But we have already taken steps that way in 2013 when the rally came back. Like I mentioned, 50% less officers than the early 2000s. So there's already risks there. And it's not about not taking enough risk, it's about being responsible. We're responsible for the city, we're responsible for public safety, and we're responsible for everyone in the city, not just the people who come here for the rally. So I think that those are the things that we have to take in consideration. I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun if we have this rally, but I also need to take in consideration the public safety aspect and of the entire city, not just those people that are here downtown. So I just wanted to mention that.
Do you think it's reasonable that we can find a way to do it safely, or are you just completely against it?
I'm not against the rally. I mentioned that the situation is what it is, and it's the council's decision whether we have a rally or not. It's the what?
Show us the way.
Okay. I don't have any control over any other agency to make them help us. And I would need all these agencies to have more police officers that they're completely.
So ballpark, how many officers and how many private security?
Mayor, you have people online that can't hear when they're
yeah.
talking back and forth from the chairs.
You know, I appreciate the conversation and the questions. I think at this point, I think we'll maybe wrap it up, and I'd like to do another ad hoc where we can get more in depth and talk about.
I'd like to know what our minimum requirements could be.
I
to
don't-
have-
is-
to be able to do it.
Do you have an answer to that, or is that a?
Like I mentioned before, I'm not going to discuss numbers. There are numbers that are less. I don't know what's funny about that. It's a officer safety issue. We're not going to tell everybody how many officers we have here for the event. And yeah, so the event that we've had in 2013 through 17, 50% less officers, we managed with that. We can't even get 10% of that number. And that's the situation right now, and it's the reality of it. We tried every possible way. We had the sheriff helping us. We had CHP helping. We had our city attorney looking into getting assistance. And the situation that I reported is what's the situation in the state of California right now. I have no control over that.
Do you have anything you want to add, Councilmember Burns? I was going to let you go first, and then I can.
Just a couple comments. Thank you, Mayor. So any of you who see me in action before, I'm a list guy, and so during the course of this meeting, I've made my list. And so just some basic quick comments is like, I think we really do need to figure out how we get to yes. Now, the rally hasn't happened since I've been on council, and as I understand it, for 3 years prior to that. So I think there's a golden opportunity here to reinvent the rally and what it looks like. Many people haven't seen the rally when it did happen because they weren't here then. And so there have been a lot of really good comments made tonight, whether it be by people in the audience or people online. And so I have to factor all those things in. But I do want to suggest that compromise is actually how you get to a successful negotiation. And I don't think compromise is a dirty word. I really like the idea of pushing it out to different areas. I very much appreciate the concept of not having it on the rally weekend that historically has been the 4th of July weekend. I think There's a lot of opportunities to market it and track the marketing. One of the problems that has existed in the past, as I understand it, was everybody talks about all the money that the rally makes, but there's really no usable data to show what that is. And I think we need to have the data. I like the idea. I like some of the comments that the captain from the CHP talked about, where if it's predictable, it's preventable. Within reason, I agree with that. But I also think the dynamic has shifted over the time, and so we really need to look at what the data is. I do want to encourage our fairgrounds, the staff, to continue to explore that. I think that could be very helpful. I do like the idea of pushing it out a week or two, one way or the other, before or after the 4th of July, because I don't like the idea of competing events. I know that on 4th of July we do the fireworks show. I would encourage you, if you've not been to it, I went to it this last 4th of July weekend, and it was amazing. And so they're different events, they require different things, but they still require public safety availability. And I like the idea of maybe augmenting public safety with private security. I have to question in my mind, when I think of different concerts I've went to as a kid, the Oakland Coliseum, concerts on the green. I know I'm dating myself a little bit now. Or the theater, the place in Mountain View, Shoreline. And there's absolutely a police presence at those places, but it can't all be law enforcement. And I do think we have to recognize there's always going to be some degree of risk, but as a community, we need to really identify what are we willing to accept. We look back and you look at the Garlic Festival over decades, great event, gave a lot of money to nonprofits. I love that conceptually. We also know that there was an active shooter, and as I understand, the city of Gilroy got sued numerous times as a result of that, even though they weren't necessarily the one putting the event on. It was in their jurisdiction. And so we have to take a comprehensive look. And I would like to see this ad hoc committee move forward with more public comment, because this is very helpful to me. And like I said, every one of you that has spoken tonight, I have my notes, my cheat notes, and I will think about that, because I think it's important to hear what's on the minds of the community. And so let me see, is there anything else I really want to say? I just think it's a golden opportunity for us to reinvent and redefine what this rally is going to look like, and I do think we need to find some compromise to get to yes and all in my comments there. Thank you, Mayor.
See, I knew he would like wrap it all up with a nice bow. So I'm just going to add that I really do appreciate some of the comments. The adventure bikers, that sounds really interesting to me. The looking at liability and whether we could do something there to kind of mitigate some of our risk. That is the biggest challenge we face, is the risk of not having enough security and somebody, God forbid, getting injured. So it is something that as a council we have to think about, but like Councilmember Burns, I'd love to get to yes. I am so thankful for Dara and for Dave coming out here and kind of proposing, some ideas about how it might be structured differently, maybe centered at the fairgrounds, and then having, like you were talking about, the different, events that maybe private groups hold, like Guerra or something like that. I see there's potential here, and I'd love to have a follow-up meeting, and I hope that you all will stay engaged and come out and kind of help. And I know that for the fair, they do need support. It's not something they can just do it all for us and we can just go and enjoy it. It's, it's going to take all of you who are interested in being committed to helping us get this going, if we're going to make it happen. So we'll have more information for the next steps, like next meeting, where we can hopefully get you all back here to talk more and see if we can't move things forward. I know everyone on the council that has talked about it would like to find a way to make this happen. We know that the residents want it, and it's just how can we do it? How can we do it safely? That's the biggest issue. So, but I see some possibilities here, so I hope you all will come back. We'll schedule another meeting, and hopefully we'll see you all there. Anything else? Anything, City Manager? All right. Well, thank you.
If I could just... there's a lot of people wanting this to happen. I think their solution or their plan in the works. If you said you had your business card with you and you're going to need a lot of volunteers, if you're serious about making this happen, I'd say work with, there's this a potential solution. And reaching out to her and seeing how far that can be taken would be a positive thing from this point forward until our next meeting, I believe.
I'm wondering if we could schedule the next meeting tonight so that we can put it out for the people that are here so that they can check their calendar or plan on attending it.
Is that possible?
Why don't we do this? I think you have another comment that someone raised their hand on Zoom.
Okay.
And I believe there was one more comment.
Okay, while he's looking at dates and things, did you want to, you had a question or a comment? Or, I'm sorry.
Miguel and someone on Zoom, right?
Miguel and someone on Zoom. Miguel, you want to go first? You have to come up so we can hear you.
I just have one more suggestion. I think you guys were talking about the money and how to charge people and the logistics of having a downtown. I would like, the tradition has been to keep it downtown, and so we can help out our community for our local businesses. The logistics from what you're explaining does seem, very hard to do. So doing something like Peter said and everybody else has been saying, where you're spraying things around, and I was just thinking, trying to make a suggestion where you're actually charging people, maybe, charging like a weekend wristband or something where you can actually monetize something where we can put the money back to help out the local police department, or our first responders and all that kind of stuff. So that was my suggestion. If we could just do to build on what everybody else was saying, and maybe sell the wristband or something where you can go to various events, maybe have like 5-6 different places you can actually do it, and that gets you into the door to every single one of them. So that was it.
Great idea, thank you. And then we have someone on Zoom.
Yes, Sam, yep, we're unmuting you right now. Sam, can you unmute yourself? Sam, you can unmute yourself and speak. There is nobody else on Zoom.
Sam's not available, but we have a couple other folks.
Oh, Maria, did you have a comment?
So my name is Maria Spandry. So I did go to Outside Land. And so what they did was 2 fences, 1 10-foot, blocked all the way around. They had 4 to 5 different sections where you could go. First aid at every station. The one main stage had like a football field full of bodies, real tight, which was really concerning, but they also had an ADA platform for each areas. And then a 6-foot walk for everybody to get through. So security was huge. You could only have clear bags. You could only have, there was a lot of limitations what you could bring in. So, but they did have security, private security, but the heavy presence was law enforcement. Everywhere we turned, it was SFPD. So, but there was just an incredible amount of people. It could be managed, but we had bodies of, we could see police department, the different police agencies, and the police officers everywhere we were, and they had an area that was cannabis, and so that was even more reinforced with higher fences. But everything, it's doable for like at the fairgrounds, but what they did is they did have 2 different fences. Then they had carts wheeling ADA, everybody with wheelchair accessible, they were carting them from different places. So it was very controlled. Everybody had to have a wristband, but it cost us $250 a band per day. So that was a way to make money. So, and then everything was no cash. It was all card, so there's no cash anywhere, way to track it too. So.
Thank you, and we can't tell that you actually do events for a living. I'm just saying, you had a run down there for us. Thank you for that.
I think there was
Yeah,
another
we're gonna
hand
try
up.
one more time. Sam, did you want to try to speak again?
Hello?
There you are. Please
Hello?
go ahead.
You get?
We can hear you.
Yes, I'm a business owner for Hollister Inn and Cinderella Motel and Hollister. We like to bring it back to biker rally for good for everybody's business and for community. If you guys need any help, we can help you guys for all the hotel business owner in Hollister.
All right, thank you.
I think there was somebody else in the back row somebody in the back row that I thought wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Oh, well, thought about it, but yeah, I'll say something.
Talked you into it.
No pressure.
Put me on the spot, man. My name's Pete Torresias. I don't live in Hollister. I live in Wattsville, born and raised there, but I have come to every rally that I've been able to. But I've ridden cross country along with a couple other people from Hollister 4 times since 2017. In a lot of places we stop, every once in a while we'll get asked about the Hollister rally. So it's not just local, and like Peter had mentioned, they're coming from all over the place. They ask about it, and it's like, I can't tell you, it's not happening. Yeah. I'd like to tell them that it's happening. So that's all I got.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So I think that we're going to have to work on the dates because there's a lot of things as well as the Thanksgiving holiday and all of that. So we're going to try to figure out a date between now and sometime in. Yeah, we'll put it out on the website. We'll get it back out on social media to you, but I hope you'll all stay involved. You can speak with Dara if you want a card from her. And thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate all of the public input. Oh, I don't have a gavel, but we're done. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Yeah, I know the data would be nice. The problem is, I don't think they kept very good data back then. Because we've tried, actually, Councilman Burns and I have talked about it. We've tried to get numbers, and we're still trying to figure out. It's just, I know one year, the vendors were not. They were taking cash. They weren't recording.